The email arrived at 6:42 a.m., slipping quietly into my inbox the way bad news always does, polite, almost apologetic in its silence. I had just poured my coffee, the steam still curling upward when I saw her name. For a brief, foolish second, my heart lifted. I thought maybe it was an invitation detail, a last-minute question, a sign that I still mattered in the biggest day of her life. I opened it smiling. That smile didn't survive the first line. "Don't come to my wedding." I read it again, slower this time, as if speed had misunderstood her. My eyes traced the words like they might rearrange themselves out of mercy. "Please watch through the live stream." It's better this way. Better for who? The question rose instinctively, but there was no place to send it. No explanation followed, no softness, no "I'm sorry," just a neat little conclusion that felt rehearsed, practiced, decided long before I ever knew. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table. This table had seen everything: birthday cakes leaning dangerously, late, night talks about school bullies, college applications spread like battle plans. It had held her elbows when she cried, her laughter when she learned to drive, her hands when she was scared of the dark, even though she pretended not to be. And now it held me while I tried not to fall apart. I didn't cry, not yet. Shock has a way of freezing the body, like it's doing you a favor. My fingers trembled just enough to spill coffee onto the table, the dark stain spreading slowly. I watched it like it was happening to someone else. I thought of the night she was born, how I counted her breaths, because I was afraid the world might take her from me if I blinked. I thought of all the times I chose her over everything else: jobs, sleep, love, pride. I wondered when I became optional. The email stayed open on my phone, glowing faintly, as if waiting for a response. I imagined 100 replies. Angry ones, broken ones, begging ones. I could explain how much this hurt. I could remind her of everything I'd done. I could ask why until the word lost its meaning. But another thought slipped in, quiet, steady, unexpected. She's already decided. This wasn't a mistake. This was a door closed gently but firmly, the way people close doors when they don't want to hear knocking anymore. I looked around the kitchen. Her childhood drawings were still on the fridge. The chipped mug she used in high school sat in the cabinet because I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Evidence of a love that never learned how to leave. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with grief. The kind that doesn't scream, the kind that just sits there and rewrites your understanding of everything. I took a deep breath. Okay. I whispered to the empty room. Not okay, as in this doesn't hurt. Okay, as in I hear you. I closed the email without replying. In that moment, something shifted, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a subtle click, like a lock turning. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. If she wanted distance, I would give it to her, and I would do it with dignity, because sometimes love doesn't fight to stay. Sometimes love knows when to step back. Silence is loud when you're not used to it. The first few days after the email, I kept reaching for my phone without thinking. Muscle memory trained by years of checking in, following up, making sure she was okay. Each time I stopped myself, my thumb hovered over her name, trembling, then pulled away like it had touched something hot. I told myself this was temporary, that I just needed time, but deep down, I knew this silence was different. This one had weight. Morning turned into afternoon, afternoon into night, and still, nothing, no clarification. No softening of her words. It became clear that my absence wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the plan. I replayed our last conversations, searching for the moment where everything went wrong. Had I said something? Asked too much? Loved too loudly? Parents aren't supposed to wonder if loving their child was a mistake. Yet there I was, bargaining with memory. The truth, when it finally surfaced, was uncomfortable in its simplicity. This hadn't started with the wedding. The wedding was just the final sentence of a story that had been fading line by line for years. Missed calls, short replies, holidays postponed, conversations where I spoke in careful tones, afraid that one wrong word might push her further away. I had learned how to edit myself around my own child, and I let it happen because I believed patience could fix anything. At night the house echoed. I noticed sounds I had ignored before: the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the wind brushing against the windows. I slept on my side of the bed, leaving the other half untouched, as if someone might return. One evening, I found myself standing in front of a box in the closet. Inside were pieces of a life she had outgrown: school awards, handmade cards, a bracelet she gave me when she was 12, and convinced it would protect me from everything. I sat on the floor and let myself cry then, quietly, carefully, like I was afraid even my grief might inconvenience someone. But in that silence, something else emerged: clarity. I realized how tired I was, not of loving her, never that, but of shrinking, of apologizing for existing, of measuring my worth by how often I was included. The silence stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like space. So I stopped waiting. I woke up earlier. I took longer walks. I cooked meals I actually liked instead of the ones she preferred years ago. I cleaned the house not to prepare for her visits, but because I wanted it clean. And slowly, painfully, I began to ask myself a question I had avoided for a long time. Who am I when I'm not trying to earn her love? The answer didn't come all at once. It arrived in small, unexpected moments: laughing at a joke without immediately wanting to share it with her, enjoying a sunset without wishing she were there to see it too. Weeks passed, the wedding date crept closer. Friends asked questions I learned to dodge gracefully. I mastered the art of smiling without explanation. I didn't reach out, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that love isn't proven by how much you endure. One night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the livestream she mentioned, watching from a screen, reduced to a viewer in a moment I once dreamed of standing in. And instead of breaking me, the thought hardened into resolve. If I was going to be kept at a distance, then I would choose how that distance looked. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at a table where my presence was optional. I would show up in the only way left to me, quietly, honestly, and on my own terms. And that was when I began to plan. The idea didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, like light slipping through cracks, small, patient, impossible to ignore. I wasn't looking for revenge, not the kind that scorches everything in its path. I had lived too long loving her to want that. What I wanted was something gentler, truer. I wanted to leave behind what words spoken in anger never could. I started with a letter. The paper mattered. I stood in the stationery aisle longer than necessary, running my fingers over textures like I was choosing a future. I picked a simple cream, colored sheet, nothing dramatic, nothing that demanded attention, just honest. At home, I sat at the same kitchen table and stared at the blank page. My hand hesitated. Years ago, writing to her had been easy. Notes in lunch boxes, cards filled with jokes only we understood. Now every sentence felt like it carried the weight of everything unsaid. I wrote, I erased, I rewrote. Not once did I accuse her. Not once did I ask why. I wrote about love without obligation, about stepping back without bitterness, about honoring her choice even when it carved something hollow inside me. Each word was chosen carefully, not to wound, but to endure. When I sealed the envelope, my hands were steady. That surprised me. Then came the rest of the gift. I gathered what remained of us, not the heavy things, but the meaningful ones. The bracelet, a photograph from her graduation where she's laughing mid-blink, a small note she once scribbled that said, "You're my home." I didn't include everything. Some memories are meant to stay where they are. I arranged delivery to the venue, timed precisely for the reception. Not to interrupt, not to steal the spotlight. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I was trying to leave a mark that couldn't be ignored, yet couldn't be criticized. The night before the wedding, sleep avoided me. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was doing the right thing. If this was too much or not enough, if silence would have been easier. But then I remembered the email. Watch through the live stream, so I decided I would. The morning arrived quietly. I dressed slowly, deliberately, even though no one would see me. I made tea instead of coffee. My hands didn't shake. When the live stream started, I sat on the couch, spine straight, heart heavy. There she was, my daughter, grown, beautiful, a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to know. I watched without blinking as she walked down the aisle, and I didn't cry, because by then the hardest part was already behind me. At the reception, while laughter filled the room and glasses clinked, my gift arrived, the letter, the box. No announcement, no explanation, just a quiet delivery among the flowers. I imagined her finding it later. Maybe alone, maybe curious, maybe annoyed, and then reading. I imagined the pause, the silence, the realization that I had respected her boundary in the most complete way possible. By not arguing it, not breaking it, but by answering it with grace. I turned off the live stream before the dancing began. Outside, the evening air was cool. I stepped onto the porch and breathed deeply, like someone learning how to live in a new body. I didn't know how she would receive the gift, but I knew something else. For the first time, I hadn't abandoned myself to prove my love. And that was enough. The house felt different the morning after the wedding lighter, somehow, like it had exhaled with me. Sunlight spilled across the floor in a way I didn't remember noticing before. I made breakfast and actually tasted it. That felt like progress. I didn't check my phone right away. When I finally did, there were messages. Not many, but enough. Friends saying the wedding was beautiful. A distant relative asking why I hadn't come. I answered politely, vaguely. I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't explaining anymore. Her message came later. It was long, so long I had to scroll. She wrote about the letter, about how she hadn't expected it, about how reading it made her cry in the bathroom while the music played outside. She said she hadn't meant to hurt me. She said things had felt complicated for a long time and she didn't know how to talk about it. She asked if we could talk. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. The old version of me would have responded instantly, eager, relieved, ready to pour myself back into any opening she offered. I felt that instinct rise and then settle, because something had changed. I loved her just as much as before. That hadn't dimmed, but I no longer felt the urgency to prove it by erasing myself. The silence I had feared had taught me something valuable. I could survive it. So I didn't reply right away. I went for a walk instead. The world felt wide, ordinary, real. I noticed small things. The sound of leaves under my shoes, the way the sky softened at the edges. Life continuing unapologetically. When I returned home, I finally wrote back. I told her I was glad the letter reached her. I told her I loved her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't demand explanations. I told her we could talk when she was ready, and when I was too. The conversation that followed in the days after was careful, uneven, honest in places and guarded in others. We didn't fix everything. We didn't suddenly return to what we were, and that was okay, because reconciliation, I learned, isn't always about returning. Sometimes it's about rebuilding something entirely new, or accepting that it may never look the same. I began to fill my days differently. I reconnected with parts of myself I had set aside. I laughed more. I rested without guilt. I stopped measuring my worth by my role in someone else's life. Weeks later, another message came from her. Shorter this time, softer. I understand now why the letter hurt so much, she wrote. It wasn't angry. It was final, and I think that scared me. I read it twice. The truth was, it hadn't been final. It had been freeing. Sweet revenge isn't loud. It doesn't clap back or demand apologies. It doesn't seek to win. Sweet revenge is choosing dignity over desperation, peace over pleading, self-respect over silence that eats you alive. I didn't lose my daughter that day, but I found myself, and no one can take that away.